The ATM spits out your card. Screen goes black. You try another. Same result. Check your phone. Banking app won't load. You've got cash for maybe 3 days. Your accounts hold months of survival, but the digital infrastructure just went dark. And here's the problem nobody prepared you for. When economic systems collapse, they don't fail randomly. They fail in sequence. Predictable sequence. The first 4 services to vanish will strand you faster than any supply shortage, and the workarounds exist right now, buried under decades of financial industry propaganda designed to keep you dependent on systems engineered to fail. I've analyzed 12 major economic collapses across the last century. The pattern repeats with mathematical precision. The systems you think are permanent infrastructure? They're dependency mechanisms with single points of failure, and today, you're going to learn exactly which services vanish first, why they're designed to fail, and the parallel networks that survive when centralized systems don't. Drone observation. Historical data shows identical service termination patterns across 13 documented economic failures. Correct. Because infrastructure dependency isn't an accident, it's architecture. The first service to vanish isn't your bank account, it's access to your bank account. Within hours of economic instability, electronic payment systems lock down. ATMs empty or disable. Card readers stop authorizing. Mobile banking apps display maintenance errors that never resolve. You've got money, theoretically, but theory doesn't buy food. Here's what they don't tell you. Electronic payment networks operate on fractional reserve assumptions and just-in-time liquidity models. The actual cash in the system represents maybe 10% of digital account values. When confidence breaks, when people rush to convert digital to physical, the mathematics implode. Banks know this. They've run the simulations. Their response isn't to increase reserves, it's to restrict access. Your money becomes theoretical until stability returns. The legal framework already exists. Bank holidays, transaction limits, emergency capital controls. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're documented policy tools deployed in every major financial crisis since 1929. Your access isn't guaranteed, it's conditional. And the conditions just changed. You think cryptocurrency solves this? You're wrong. When payment networks collapse, digital currencies face the same access problem with an additional vulnerability: electricity dependency. Your wallet might be decentralized, but the power grid isn't. And the exchange infrastructure? Centralized services with the same failure modes as traditional banking. But here's what survives. Physical cash, obviously, despite the propaganda claiming its obsolescence. Small denomination bills, because merchants won't have change and won't trust large notes when counterfeiting surges. Precious metals work, but here's the uncomfortable reality. Gold's too valuable for daily transactions, silver works better, and pre-1965 US coinage containing 90% silver becomes functional currency that merchants can verify by weight and sound. The second system to fail: supply chain logistics and inventory databases. Modern retail operates on just-in-time delivery coordinated through centralized computer networks. When those networks go dark, through cyber attack, infrastructure failure, or deliberate shutdown during unrest, stores can't restock. But here's the critical detail everyone misses. Stores also can't process transactions without inventory management systems. The products exist on shelves, but cashiers can't sell them because the computers don't know what's in stock or what the prices are. You've seen this in small scale: power outages that close stores despite full inventory. Scale that to weeks. The food exists, the distribution system is paralyzed, and starvation becomes a software problem. The workaround requires understanding pre-digital commerce, direct producer relationships. Farmers markets don't rely on electronic inventory systems. Community-supported agriculture bypasses digital logistics entirely. But you need to establish these relationships now, before crisis makes you just another desperate stranger. The industry suppresses this model through convenience narrative and economy of scale propaganda. Centralized distribution is more efficient, which translates to more profitable for corporations, more vulnerable for you. Efficiency and resilience exist in inverse relationship. The most efficient system is the most fragile. Drone query: why optimize for efficiency rather than survival? Protagonist response: because survival doesn't generate quarterly earnings growth. Efficiency does. Until it doesn't. The third service to vanish: telecommunications infrastructure. Not immediately, but within days, as backup power systems exhaust and maintenance crews stop showing up. Your phone works until tower batteries die, usually 4 to 72 hours depending on system design. Then communication becomes geography. If you're not local, you're isolated. Here's the uncomfortable truth: modern society has no communication resilience. We've replaced robust analog systems with efficient digital networks that require constant power and maintenance. When those requirements aren't met, we're more isolated than humans were in 1920. At least they had telegraph lines that could be manually operated and repaired. But ham radio operators know something the industry buried. High-frequency radio requires no infrastructure. A 100-watt transceiver powered by solar panels can reach thousands of miles when atmospheric conditions cooperate. The technology predates transistors. The physics hasn't changed. The Federal Communications Commission issues licenses specifically for this emergency use case, but retail telecommunications companies don't profit from decentralized communication, so they don't sell it. The fourth service to fail, and this one kills people: prescription medication supply chains. Pharmacies stock 3 to 7 days of high-demand medications. Distribution centers hold maybe 30 days. Manufacturing? Primarily offshore, dependent on international shipping and raw material supplies from chemical plants that shut down immediately during economic collapse. Your 90-day prescription becomes a 7-day supply when the system cracks. If you're thinking you'll just stockpile, check the laws. Most controlled substances carry prescription limits specifically designed to prevent exactly that. You can't legally acquire the reserve that would keep you alive. The system guarantees dependency and criminalizes preparation. Before we go further, this information isn't classified, but it's buried deliberately. Subscribe to access the analysis they don't want distributed. Comment with one system dependency you've identified in your own preparedness. Now let's talk about the medical workaround nobody mentions. The legitimate solution exists in drug manufacturing chemistry and international pharmacy law. Many prescription medications have identical or chemically similar veterinary equivalents available without prescription. Fish antibiotics containing amoxicillin, doxycycline, cephalexin, same molecular structure, same manufacturer, often different label. The dosing calculations are straightforward if you understand body weight ratios and minimum effective concentrations. Here's the problem: this is legal but socially engineered to seem suspicious. Medical industry doesn't profit from informed self-medication. Pharmaceutical companies don't benefit from you understanding that their human product and veterinary product come from the same synthesis facility. The margin difference is marketing and prescription gatekeeping. The more sophisticated workaround: medical tourism and international pharmacy access. Dozens of countries sell prescription medications over the counter that require prescriptions in the United States. The drugs aren't different. The regulatory frameworks are: a 90-day supply of many common medications costs less internationally than a single US copay, and importation for personal use falls under FDA guidelines allowing small quantities. You're not trafficking, you're traveling. But there's an even older solution the industry really hates: medicinal chemistry knowledge and botanical synthesis. Aspirin derives from willow bark, digoxin from foxglove, quinine from cinchona. These aren't folk remedies. They're the chemical sources that pharmaceutical companies refined into patented formulations. The active compounds exist in plants, and the extraction processes are documented in century-old chemistry texts. Now here's the pattern you need to recognize. Every one of these systems, electronic payment, supply chain logistics, telecommunications, pharmaceutical distribution, they all share a common architecture: centralized control with dependency enforcement. They're not designed for your resilience. They're designed for market capture. You become the recurring revenue model. Your dependency is their profitability. The economic incentive is clear. A customer who solves problems permanently isn't a customer anymore. A customer who manages problems indefinitely generates lifetime value. This is why solutions exist but remain obscure. This is why alternatives get socially coded as extreme or suspicious. The industry doesn't want you to exit the dependency loop. Drone observation. Permanent solutions reduce revenue streams by 89% compared to subscription-based dependency models. Protagonist. which is why they're called unsustainable by industries that profit from the opposite. Let's address the access timing problem. All four services don't fail simultaneously, they cascade. Electronic payments lock first because they respond to confidence loss fastest. Supply logistics fail within 72 hours as inventory depletes and restocking halts. Telecommunications degrade over 4 to 10 days as backup power exhausts. Pharmaceutical supplies stretch to 30 days maximum before critical shortages emerge. This sequence matters because your preparation window contracts as each system fails. After electronic payment locks, but before telecommunications die, you've got narrow opportunity to coordinate with local networks. After telecom fails, but before medications run out, you can still organize pharmaceutical resource sharing. The window closes fast, and most people waste it trying to restore what's gone instead of adapting to what's coming. You're thinking this sounds like preparation for total collapse. You're wrong. This is preparation for partial collapse with indefinite duration. Total collapse is actually simpler. Everyone knows the rules are gone. Partial collapse is chaos because the rules still theoretically exist, but enforcement is sporadic and different regions experience different levels of system failure. You're navigating a maze where some corridors have lights and others are dark, and you don't know which is which until you're inside. The workaround for this specific chaos: local knowledge networks and physical community coordination. Not online forums, those vanish with telecommunications. Physical meeting locations established now before crisis removes the ability to organize. Community members with complementary skills and resources who know each other's capabilities and locations. This isn't prepper fantasy. It's how humans organized for thousands of years before centralized systems made us forget. Here's the specific implementation. Within 5-mile radius of your location, identify medical professionals, electricians, mechanics, farmers, people with fuel storage, people with water sources, people with communication equipment. Not what they'll trade, what they know and what they have access to. When systems fail, knowledge and access are currency. Physical money buys things until stores close. Skills and resources keep functioning after money becomes meaningless. The industry wants you to believe apps solve this. Community coordination platforms, neighborhood watch networks, emergency communication systems, all dependent on the infrastructure that fails first. You're building resilience on digital foundation designed to collapse. You need paper backups, physical maps, and in-person verification. This sounds primitive. It's actually resilient. Now here's the pharmaceutical workaround they really don't want distributed. Many critical medications have stability far beyond official expiration dates when stored properly. Tetracycline breaks down into toxic compounds. Never use expired. But most antibiotics, many cardiac medications, pain relievers, they lose potency slowly, not suddenly. Military studies show 90% of medications retain full efficacy 5 to 10 years past expiration when stored cool, dry, and dark. The expiration date isn't when the medication becomes useless. It's when the manufacturer's liability coverage ends and when you'll need to buy a replacement. Planned obsolescence applied to life-saving medication. The chemistry doesn't care about the printed date. The chemistry cares about temperature, humidity, light exposure, and oxygen contact. Control those variables, and you control degradation rate. But here's what you actually need for medication security: condition treatment knowledge rather than pharmaceutical dependency. Type 2 diabetes responds to ketogenic dietary protocols that reduce insulin requirements by 60 to 80% in clinical studies. Hypertension correlates with processed food sodium and metabolic syndrome, both addressable through dietary intervention. Most psychiatric medications manage symptoms rather than resolve causes, and alternative treatments exist that industries profit from suppressing. I'm not saying abandon necessary medication. I'm saying understand what's dependency and what's actual requirement. The industry profits from blurring that line. They want you believing every condition needs permanent pharmaceutical management. Some do, many don't. The difference is knowledge they don't provide because informed patients become former patients. Let's address the telecommunications workaround in detail. Ham radio licensing requires passing tests on basic electronics and radio regulation, studying for which teaches you the technical knowledge you need for emergency communication. The license is permanent, costs minimal, and provides legal access to frequencies that function when cellular networks die. But here's the specific workaround for unlicensed communication. family radio service, and GMRS radios. FRS requires no license, operates on UHF frequencies that provide 2 to 5 mile range in urban environments. GMRS requires simple license with no test, extends range to 15 to 20 miles with proper antennas. These aren't toys, they're legitimate emergency communication tools that bypass cellular dependency entirely. The limitation is range. HF ham radio crosses continents. VHF, UHF radios cover neighborhoods. You need both: local coordination and distant information access. When regional systems fail but distant areas remain functional, HF radio provides intelligence about what's coming and what's working elsewhere. That information advantage decides whether you adapt effectively or waste resources on solutions that don't match actual conditions. The industry buried this knowledge under smartphone convenience. Why learn radio operation when you can text? Because texting requires infrastructure maintained by others. Radio requires physics maintained by the universe. Physics is more reliable. Now here's the payment system workaround that actually functions during collapse. Barter requires double coincidence of wants. You need what I have, I need what you have, simultaneously. This fails at scale, but commodity money solves this. Silver, copper, brass, these hold value because they have industrial utility beyond currency. An ounce of silver isn't just metal, it's electrical conductivity, water purification, medical antiseptic. The value is intrinsic, but here's the specific implementation detail everyone misses. Small denominations matter. 1 ounce silver rounds work for large transactions. What about buying eggs or getting a bicycle tire patched? You need fractional silver, half ounce, quarter ounce, even 10th ounce pieces. Or you need copper rounds and brass tokens that have accepted trade value. The metal content provides floor value, but fungibility requires standardization and recognition. The industry wants you using unstable currency because instability generates financial service fees. Currency exchange, inflation hedging, monetary policy speculation, all profit centers that vanish when you hold physical commodities. They can't charge you management fees on silver you physically possess. So they convince you it's archaic, impractical, extremist, while central banks quietly accumulate gold reserves. Drone query. Why do institutions accumulate assets they publicly declare obsolete? Protagonist response: because their public statements serve their interests, not yours. Here's the supply chain workaround you can implement immediately. Identify products you consume regularly that have long shelf life. Not emergency food, regular items you'll use anyway. Rice, dried beans, canned goods, cooking oil, soap, toilet paper. Purchase 3 to 6 months of normal consumption now while systems function. Rotate stock. Use oldest, replace with fresh. You're not hoarding, you're buffering against logistics failure. This approach bypasses the just-in-time dependency that makes you vulnerable to any supply disruption. You're not preparing for apocalypse, you're insulating yourself from fragile systems. When logistics fail for others, you've got time to adapt while they're competing for scarce resources. Time is tactical advantage. But here's the critical detail about supply buffering. It only works if you understand consumption rates. Most people guess. You need data. Track actual usage for 1 month. Count cans of food eaten, rolls of toilet paper used, gallons of water consumed. Multiply by 3 or 6. That's your buffer target. Guessing leaves you short or wastes money overstocking items you don't use. The pattern across all 4 systems is identical. Centralized infrastructure with single points of failure, maintained by just-in-time resource management, dependent on stable economic conditions and continuous electrical power. These are features, not bugs. The architecture guarantees dependency, and dependency generates revenue. You exit dependency, you exit their revenue stream. The industry won't tell you this because solved problems don't generate quarterly growth. Permanent solutions contradict business models based on subscription and recurring consumption. Your independence is their revenue loss. So they engineer dependence and call it progress. Here's what you do now before the window closes. Establish cash reserves in small bills, 1s, 5s, 10s. Acquire silver in 1 ounce rounds and fractional denominations. Get ham radio license or at minimum FRS GMRS equipment and practice using it. Build 3-month supply buffer of consumables you actually use. Identify local network members with complementary skills and resources. research medication stability, and veterinary pharmaceutical equivalents. These aren't prepper fantasies. They're exits from systems designed to fail. The physics is simple. Centralized systems optimize for efficiency and control. Distributed systems optimize for resilience and autonomy. You can't have both. The industry chose efficiency because it's profitable. You choose resilience because you'll survive when efficiency collapses. This isn't about apocalypse preparation. This is about recognizing that the systems you depend on are structurally fragile and economically incentivized to remain that way. You can't fix the systems. You can exit dependency on them. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. You've learned which 4 services fail first, why they're designed that way, and the specific workarounds that function when centralized systems don't. Electronic payment, supply logistics, telecommunications, pharmaceutical distribution, each with parallel networks that survived before digital consolidation and will survive after digital collapse. The information isn't secret. It's just unprofitable to distribute. Now here's what I need from you. What other critical services have single points of failure that nobody's addressing? What dependencies have you identified that entire communities ignore? Drop your observations in the comments. This is how we map vulnerabilities they won't acknowledge. Collective intelligence functions when centralized analysis fails. You can't buy independence. You build it. One exit at a time from systems that profit from your dependence. Physics doesn't charge subscription fees. Thermodynamics has no quarterly earnings goals. The laws that govern matter don't care about your market participation. Build around physics. Ignore marketing. Science doesn't expire.